Mary Jo Kopechne could have survived for hours inside that sinking car. Divers said she was positioned near an air pocket, hands braced, head tilted up, fighting to breathe. Ted Kennedy said he tried to save her. Then he swam away. Then he waited until morning to call anyone. When he finally sat with her mother, Gwen, in private, she expected an apology. She expected answers. What she got instead haunted her until the day she died. In 1989, she finally revealed what Kennedy told her in those meetings, and it wasn't what anyone imagined. Mary Jo entered the world on July 26, 1940, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, the only child of Joseph and Gwen. Her father sold insurance, and her mother stayed home. The family's roots in Luzerne County stretched back more than 250 years, surviving the kind of rough coal town life where mines collapsed often and men rarely grew old. Her parents wanted something better, so they moved to Berkeley Heights, New Jersey, when she was still an infant, shifting her path from generations of hard labor toward books, ambition, and possibility. She grew up in a strict Catholic home, graduated from Our Lady of the Valley High School in 1958, and earned a business administration degree from Caldwell College for Women in 1962. A professional degree like that was rare for women back then, but she treated it like a tool instead of a trophy. She headed to Montgomery, Alabama, at a time when the fight for civil rights was boiling in the streets. She taught typing and shorthand to black students at Montgomery Catholic High School and joined the mission of St. Jude, a Catholic institution that cared for black and white residents when most places were strictly divided. In 1965, when the Selma to Montgomery March brought national attention to the city, the mission hosted the Stars for Freedom rally, where Joan Baez and Mahalia Jackson performed. Mary Jo moved through all of it, helping wherever she could. Her inspiration came straight from John F. Kennedy's 1961 inaugural address, where he called on Americans to give rather than take. Those words pushed her toward Washington, D.C., where she worked first for Senator George Smathers and later for Senator Robert F. Kennedy. By her mid-20s, she was rising fast. When the Kennedy family asked her to become a governess for the children, she turned them down. She wanted a career built on her own achievements. When RFK launched his 1968 presidential campaign, she became one of 6 young women placed in the boiler room, a cramped, windowless room where the core strategic work took place. She handled sensitive information, tracked delegates, and helped draft the speech RFK delivered on March 16, 1968, when he announced his candidacy. Her main responsibility was Pennsylvania, a crucial state. She tracked changing loyalties, predicted delegate movements, and advised the campaign on strategy. Her colleagues described her as the sharpest political mind in the room. The boiler room. Girls Mary Jo, Rosemary Keogh, Esther Newberg, Nance Lyons, Mary Ellen Lyons, and Susan Tannenbaum worked under tremendous pressure. Mary Jo, the oldest at 27, served as the anchor. She knew Pennsylvania's political landscape better than most seasoned operatives. In 1967, she worked at RFK's home in Hickory Hill through the night, typing a major speech on the Vietnam War while advisors debated each line. Then came June 5, 1968. RFK was assassinated at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, and Mary Jo was there. The loss crushed her. She rode on the funeral train carrying his body from New York to Arlington and helped pack up his office afterward. The grief settled into her life like a weight she could not shake. She tried working for George McGovern's campaign, but the memories were too strong. Her father later said, politics had been her life, and losing RFK broke something inside her that never fully healed. Later in 1968, she joined Matt Reese Associates, a pioneering political consulting firm. By mid-1969, she had moved on to a mayoral campaign in Jersey City. The candidate won, and her work was described as exceptional. She seemed ready for a bright future. She was just getting started when her story came to its sudden end in July 1969. On the night of July 18, 1969, Mary Jo stepped into a moment that would change everything. She was 28 and had spent the evening at a reunion for the Boiler Room girls on Chappaquiddick Island. Around 11, she left with Ted Kennedy without taking her purse, her hotel key, or even telling her roommate. Not long after, Kennedy drove straight off the Dyke Bridge into Pasha Pond. The bridge was narrow, unlit, and without guardrails. The plunge was fast and violent. Kennedy escaped and surfaced gasping, but Mary Jo remained trapped inside. Kennedy later claimed the crash happened around 11:15 p.m., but an off-duty deputy sheriff reported seeing a car matching Kennedy's plate at 12:40 a.m., almost 90 minutes after Kennedy said the accident had already occurred. Hours later, at 8:45 a.m. on July 19, diver John Farrar found Mary Jo's body in a position that froze investigators. Her hands were braced against the back seat, her head tilted upward, her body held in the exact place an air pocket would have formed. She might have survived for some time, fighting to breathe as the water rose. Farrar later said she could have lived for at least 30 minutes, possibly 3 or 4 hours. He said he could have pulled her out within 25 minutes if someone had called him. Kennedy said he dove again and again trying to reach her. He said he shouted her name, swam down 7 or 8 times, and fought until he was exhausted. After nearly 20 minutes, he walked back toward the cottage, passing houses with lights on, past chances to call for help. He did not take any of them. At the cottage, Kennedy told only his cousin Joe Gargan and friend Paul Markham. They rushed back and tried their own rescue attempts but failed. Still, no one called the police. Then came a moment that stunned even the men closest to him. Kennedy suggested they create a story that shifted responsibility away from him. One version had Mary Jo driving alone. Gargan refused immediately. After that argument, Kennedy swam about 500 feet back to Edgartown, walked to his hotel, changed clothes, and acted calm when he ran into guests in the hallway. People remembered seeing him smiling. The next morning, he talked casually with more guests while Mary Jo's car sat underwater with her still inside. He made calls to political allies. He did not call the police. When the accident was finally reported at 9:50 a.m., the car had already been discovered by a teenager. When divers lifted the car, parts of the roof and trunk were dry, confirming a clear air pocket had formed. Judge Boyle later concluded that Mary Jo probably died between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. She could have been alive for more than an hour after the crash, hoping for help that never came. Her funeral was held on July 22, 1969, in Plymouth, Pennsylvania. Kennedy arrived wearing a thick neck brace that drew immediate suspicion. Critics claimed he was trying to look injured, trying to win sympathy. There was no medical record proving he needed the brace. Instead of calming suspicions, it only made them grow. On July 25, Kennedy pleaded guilty to leaving the scene of an accident. The judge gave him a 2-month jail sentence, then suspended it. Not a single day behind bars. That same day, he went on television and delivered a statement that sounded rehearsed. He admitted he failed to report the accident, claimed he was confused and in shock. The country felt no relief. His words were too neat and too inconsistent. Within a year of Mary Jo's death, her parents, Joseph and Gwen Kopechne, met with Kennedy twice. They walked into those meetings hoping for answers. Instead, they left feeling lost. Gwen later said the meetings were ridiculous, because nothing new was ever said, nothing explained, nothing healed. Kennedy never told them what happened during the hours after the accident. He never explained why their daughter remained in the submerged car while he walked away. Each time they sat with him, they hoped he would finally speak openly, but every meeting carried the same emptiness. They felt their grief was being managed, not comforted. The most painful part was that they learned nothing. They did not find out how long Mary Jo survived. They did not hear what Kennedy did in those missing hours. They did not receive any explanation about why their daughter was left alone underwater. Even more painful was the fact that Kennedy never apologized. In a 1994 interview, the Kopechnes revealed that he never once looked them in the eye and said he was sorry. Letters came from other members of the Kennedy family, but the senator himself remained quiet. Gwen waited for years, hoping he might offer even one simple acknowledgement of responsibility. Nothing came. That silence hardened into something permanent. In 1989, Gwen spoke publicly. Her voice trembled as she said she wanted him to tell her what happened. She pleaded for any detail that might lift the weight pressing on her heart. She said she carried the burden of not knowing and believed Kennedy could ease it if he chose to. He never did. The silence she received was the same silence she had carried since the day her daughter died. The family did receive a settlement, but it came from the insurance company, not from Kennedy. The amount was $140,923, determined by actuaries calculating Mary Jo's potential lifetime earnings. It was a number printed on paper, A cold sum that tried to define the worth of a young woman's entire life. Their lawyer confirmed that Kennedy did not pay any of it personally. The money did nothing for their hearts. Joseph Kopechne shared something even more heartbreaking. He said the only satisfaction he and Gwen ever received was knowing that Mary Jo's death stopped Kennedy from becoming president. Kennedy's political rise collapsed after Chappaquiddick. Public trust never fully returned. Joseph said Kennedy cared more about himself than about Mary Jo, and every meeting they had with him felt hollow. The silence of the party attendees added to the mystery. Almost every person at the gathering avoided speaking about the night for decades. Journalists tried asking questions, but interviews were refused and stories stayed vague. Their unwillingness to speak pushed people to believe they were pressured or simply too frightened to reopen the wound. Then new information surfaced in 2025. Secret tapes recorded by journalist Leo Damore in 1988 were found in a briefcase hidden under a bed belonging to one of his attorneys. These tapes included interviews with Joe Gargan. On them, Gargan admitted that Kennedy asked him to lie about who was driving the car. Damore had long believed he was being watched and threatened during his investigation, and the tapes confirmed some of the darkest suspicions. They suggested a coordinated effort to hide the truth, guided by political power and influence. The story resonates powerfully in 2025, as America continues to reckon with how powerful families and institutions have historically shielded their own conversations. Reignited by recent high-profile cases involving political dynasties and the ongoing debate about accountability for the elite. The Kopechnes never saw these tapes. Joseph passed away in 2003, and Gwen followed in 2007. They left this world without the answers they deserved. Mary Jo's once bright career became overshadowed by a single tragic moment. She became known not for her work or her dreams, but for the way she died. Her family lived with a wound that never closed, and the silence that surrounded her death lingered long after everyone involved was gone, leaving behind a painful reminder of how truth can be lost when power stands in the way.